So, okay, I think we're ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the monthly Honor Deceased Veteran Ceremony here at the Board of Supervisors. My name is Frank McClellan, and I am the Director of Veteran Services here at the county. And I want to thank you all for being here. At this time, I'd like to ask you to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance led by members of our Saratoga County American Legion, and remain standing for our invocation by our honorary county chaplain, Paul O'Keefe. We usually don't set the pledge to music.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our Supreme Commander in heaven, we thank you once again for giving us this day to honor and pay tribute to our Saratoga County Deceased Veteran of the Month. Our precious deceased veteran for the month of August is Christopher Sgambati. This was the favorite ceremony for Chris, as for many years, he donated his beautiful voice. And our director, Frank McClellan, will tell you of all the great qualities of this World War II, the greatest generation, U.S. Navy veteran. I have been honored to recite prayers for these precious deceased veterans for a few years now. And every once in a while, I know the veteran or a member of his family. Today, the first day after the Feast of the Assumption, the most holiest religious day celebrated in Mechanicville, our friendly city that was formerly 3/4 of the people were of Italian heritage. They had their own beautiful Italian church named after yesterday's holiday, Holy Day, the beautiful Church of the Assumption Parish. This church had one of the greatest choirs in New York State, including the many choirs at St. Patrick's gigantic cathedral in the Big Apple. The reason for this great honor was because 3/4 of the talented vocalist had the last name of Sgambati, or they were married to one. Of course, our honored deceased veteran, Chris, was a longtime member. Church of the Assumption also had one of the most talented organists and vocalists. And yes, she was a Sgambati. Chris Sgambati Panzilio. Chris was my neighbor on Saratoga Avenue. We both lived on the same. I think I was the only Irishman on the street. Only 4 homes between my home and Chris. He was our greatest supervisor for many years. Chris and I were both enshrined in Honorable Senator Kathy Marchionne's New York State Veterans Hall of Fame, class of 2014. It seems like yesterday, it was 8 years ago. Chris was also enshrined in Mechanicville High School Sports Hall of Fame just shortly before he was called to heaven. Chris was also our family's insurance agent. In 1956, I was employed at the Mechanicville, West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company. They went on a 4-month strike. I had 2 young children at the time. Chris, being the kind-hearted man he was, never came to my residence, as insurance agents did in those days, to collect the payment. My wife, Marie, met him one day in his mother's mom and pop store. Mechanicville had several mom and pops, but Sgambati's was the biggest and the best. And they were noted for the greatest cold cuts and great Italian sausage, etc. My wife said, Chris, we owe you for our insurance. He replied, Marie, your family is taken care of. We both gave him a big hug and a thank you. Chris Sgambati and our teacher, Tina, see if I use the right adjectives. He qualified for so many. Chris Sgambati was a man of integrity and a gentleman, a classy, loving, genuine, humble, faithful, veteran, husband, father, cousin, godfather-in-law, and neighbor. There was no better way to honor and connect with a deceased veteran than in prayer. Prayers are powerful, even if you make up your own. Our Supreme Commander in heaven, you have shown us that death is but the gateway to a more glorious life, and that we must not fear its coming. And we know also that neither life nor death can separate us from your love. Assure us once again that our comrade, World War II U.S. Navy veteran of the greatest generation, Christopher Sgambati, is not lost to us, but is sharing a new life with you, his wife Lucy, and other family members and friends, where we shall, in your good time, be all reunited. We know that Christopher Sgambati will be with you forever. I want to express our sincere condolences to his loving children, Christina Sgambati Pickett and her husband Bill, his two great sons, Pat and Dave, all family members, friends of Christopher Sgambati. And right now, please may I offer a moment of silence for the soul of Chris Sgambati. Thank you and amen. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Chaplain O'Keefe. Some great stories there, and I'm sure that you're going to hear a lot more of those, as Chris was a well-known and well-loved individual. Christopher R. Sgambati was born at a home above his family grocery on Saratoga Avenue on May 31st, 1925. His parents, Stefano and Emilia, had emigrated from Italy to the United States in the late 1800s. After attending grade school just down the street from where he was born, Chris attended and graduated from Mechanicville High School in June of 1943. Like so many other young men from Mechanicville and across the country at that time, just 2 months later, in August of 1943, Chris was drafted into the United States Navy, where he proudly served his country during World War II. Chris entered active duty into the Navy on 16 August of 43. He would first be assigned a Naval Training Station in Sampson in New York, transferring to Naval Training Station Bainbridge, Maryland, to train as a fire controlman. After Bainbridge, he was then sent to Norfolk, Virginia to train at the amphibious training base at Camp Bradford. The ATB was also known as Little Creek, and it was the center for all types of amphibious training and the training of landing craft ships' crews. Chris served the majority of his time in the Navy overseas aboard the USS LST 614 in the Pacific Theater of the War. LST 614 was laid down on 28 January 1944 at Seneca, Illinois, by the Chicago Bridge and Iron Company, and it was launched on the 6th of May of 44. LST 614 was designed to carry troops for landing or cargo to landing from landing craft tanks to regular tanks, wheeled and tracked vehicles, artillery pieces, construction equipment, and military supplies. A ramp or elevator forward allowed vehicles access to the tank deck from main deck. The ship was armed with two twin 40-millimeter gun mounts with MK51 directors. And the director is a part of the fire control system. It passes information to the computer that calculates the range and elevation for the guns. It also had four single 40-millimeter gun mounts and 12 single 20-millimeter gun mounts. Chris worked directly on these firing systems. During World War II, the LST 614 was assigned to the Asiatic Pacific Theater and participated in the following operations: the Western New Guinea operation, and specifically the Morotai landing in September of 44, the Lady operation in the Philippines and the Lady landing in October of 44, the Luzon operation and the Lingayen Gulf landing in January of 45, and the consolidation and capture of the southern Philippines at Mindanao Island in April of 45. LST 614 earned 4 battle stars for World War II service. Chris participated in these battles that took place throughout the islands in the South Pacific. And as anyone with an interest in World War II history knows, the fighting in the Pacific was not an easy task, to say the least. The campaign to liberate the Philippines were especially important and a huge part of the Allied victory. I'd like to share a story about Chris's witness to one of the most well-known photos taken of the war, that of General MacArthur as he waded ashore at Leyte in the Philippines. After General MacArthur had been evacuated from the Philippines in March of 42, all of its islands fell to the Japanese. The general and his family and closest aides were forced to escape in the middle of the night and relocate in Australia. When General MacArthur arrived in Australia, he made his famous declaration, "I came through and I shall return." The Japanese occupation was harsh, accompanied by atrocities and with large numbers of Filipinos pressed into slave labor. The people of the Philippines, as well as many American POWs, were brutalized by the Japanese forces. The Philippines were also a major strategic loss. Some blamed General MacArthur for the humiliating surrender of the American and British forces in Corregidor and the brutal Bataan Death March that followed. But President Roosevelt applied a different strategy. FDR felt that what the American public needed was a hero, not a scapegoat. So he promoted General MacArthur to Supreme Commander of the Southwest Pacific Forces. And in that role, General immediately began preparing for his return to the Philippines. On October 20th, 1944, he fulfilled his plans and stepped ashore the Philippine island of Leyte. MacArthur stepped ashore while the battle was still raging and against the advice of his senior staff. He later delivered his address, which began with what became perhaps one of the most famous quotes of the war: "People of the Philippines, I have returned." The Japanese conquest of the Philippines was one of the worst military disasters in American history. Recapturing the islands after more than 3 years under Japanese control, therefore, was one of the greatest symbolic and strategic victories of the war. As such, the photo and MacArthur's address were staged just so, to highlight to the world the significance of the moment. Chris was eyewitness to this historic event on board the LST 614 at the beach at Leyte, which can be identified in the photo just behind General MacArthur. After the Japanese surrender and the end of the war, Chris transferred to another newly laid down ship, LST 1134. He was then cleared for discharge and made his way home via San Francisco, then shipping to New York, where he was discharged at Lido Beach, Long Island. Chris was awarded the American Theater Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Theater Medal with 3 stars, the Philippine Liberation Medal with 2 stars, and the World War II Victory Medal. He was honorably discharged from the United States Navy on April 1st, 1946, and he returned home to Mechanicville. Chris would go on to lead an amazing life. He was devoted to his wife of over 65 years, the late Lucy Forte Sgambati, and together they had 3 children: a daughter, Christina, married to Bill Pickett, and 2 sons, Patrick, married to the former Pam Camerato, and David, married to the former Mary Garrett. Chris also boasted 7 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. He was a fixture in Mechanicville, serving the community in many ways, and also Saratoga County, serving as a supervisor on the Board of Supervisors for over 30 years. An advocate for veterans his entire life, Chris was a life member of the American Legion, the VFW, and a founding member of the ITAM Veterans Post number 21, where he served as post commander. He also participated in many city and area services honoring veterans, including our program here today, and in the past, the Honor Deceased Veteran Ceremony, where he led all those present in singing Amazing Grace and God Bless America. We were honored to have him here with us each month. Chris was inducted into the 43rd Senate District's Veterans Hall of Fame in 2015, as mentioned. And Mr. Sgambati was also honored at a special ceremony by the Board of Supervisors in October of 2017 at the Saratoga City Center for his service in World War II and his dedication to the community. Chris passed peacefully in his beloved home in Mechanicville on November 16th, 2019. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our supervisor from the city of Mechanicville, Supervisor Tom Richardson. Sir.
Hopefully I can do this. Anyways, I want to back up to 1973. Charlie's sitting over there. I started with the Prudential Insurance Company, and Chris, he was laughing. My water. Chris was always there to help me throughout my career, as was Charlie. Now I'll take you to 1985. We're sitting around the office one day, and there's something going on at the school board. I don't know what's going on. So I say to Chris, what's going on? The school sounds like there's a mess up there or whatever. And he said, well, listen, if you want to know what's going on, get involved, do something, run for the Board of Education. So I did, and I spent 3 years on the Board of Education, thanks to Chris. That was a tough 3 years, that's for sure. So the next thing that happened, fast forward to 2005, I retired from Prudential. I get a phone call from Chris, come over and see me. So I go over to the house, and he says to me, I've been the supervisor for 30 years, and I'm 80 years old. Don't make me cry, Tina. He says, you've got to do this. And so here I am, 17 years later, still doing this. And he had a joke about me for years. He used to call me Tommy No Hands. And the reason he did that was when I played varsity basketball with Brett and Billy, he kept the score clock in Mechanicville for 50 years. Well, there's a pass thrown to me right in front of the score clock, and I fumbled the ball out of bounds. And so that's why he called me Tommy No Hands when he saw me. And I said, but it wasn't my fault. Billy was the point guard. He threw me a bad pass. And he said, you know, Chris, you know, we say, no, I saw you. You fumbled it right in front of me. Take the credit for it. So that's, and there's so many stories, so many things that we could talk about today, but we could go on and on. I have here a proclamation, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because you're going to hear a lot from these other people, that our good mayor, Mike Butler from Mechanicville, read at the city council meeting last week for your dad. But I also have this statement that I'd like to read. And it says, the United States of America honors the memory of Christopher Sgambati. This certificate is awarded by a grateful nation in recognition of devotion. Devoted and selfless consecration to the service to our country and the armed forces of the United States. And it's signed by President Biden. Okay. So Tina, let me give these to you.
I remember so did your father.
It appears some things are left unsettled. Thank you, Supervisor Richardson. I should mention as well, as representing the city of Mechanicville, Supervisor Richardson also has been serving as our chairman of the Veterans Committee of the Board of Supervisors, and we thank him for that. I'd like to now introduce our chairman of the Board of Supervisors from the town of Moreau, Supervisor Todd Kuzniers, who would like to present a county proclamation.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank you for all the important work that you and your staff do on a daily basis. on behalf of all of our veterans and the residents of Saratoga County. Thank you, Supervisor Richardson, for your heartfelt remarks. Very touching. And it just goes to a level of indication of how important people can be in our lives, particularly our veterans. So thank you for those remarks. I'm also joined this afternoon here in the Board of Supervisors meeting room by Supervisor Butler from Corinth and Supervisor Lant. Pleased that you could be here with us tonight on this very important occasion. I think one of the most important things that we do here at Saratoga County is recognize the service of. It's an honor for me to be able to stand before you and on behalf of the Board of Supervisors do so. Also an indication of how important these ceremonies are. I'm pleased to be joined by our Congressman, Congressmember Tonko, our Senator Daphne Jordan, and Assembly Member Carrie Werner. Thank you for being here today. And on my left, we also have county elected officials. We have our District Attorney, Karen Hagan, and our County Clerk, Craig Hayner. So thank you for being here today. I think it's important that we memorialize our remarks today that will be presented to the family in a proclamation. So I would like to read it in its entirety. And I'll begin by saying, whereas the freedom, security, and prosperity of the American people have enjoyed throughout the history of our nation have been preserved due to the heroism, sacrifice of the men and women who have served in our armed forces. And whereas the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors wishes to honor and memorialize the lives and courageous deeds of members of the armed forces who have served with distinction in the defense of our nation. And whereas Christopher R. Sgambati was a Saratoga County resident who proudly served our country and our county in the armed services of the United States, whereas Christopher R. Sgambati of the city of Mechanicville served in the United States Navy during World War II. Christopher was drafted in August 1943 and served through April 1946 when he was honorably discharged. And whereas Christopher served as a fire controlman aboard the USS LST 614 in the Pacific Theater and participated in several battles that took place on islands in the South Pacific. Whereas for his service, Christopher was awarded the American Theater Medal, the Asiatic Pacific Theater Medal with 3 campaign stars, the Philippine Liberation Ribbon with 2 service stars, and the World War II Victory Medal. And whereas at home, Christopher worked for the Boston and Maine Railroad Company and later the Prudential Insurance Company as an agent, Christopher was elected to serve on the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors, where he proudly represented the city of Mechanicville for 30 years. And whereas Christopher was very active in his hometown community, serving as a member of the Board of Commissioners of the Mechanicville Housing Authority for over 30 years and volunteering as a timekeeper for the Mechanicville High School boys basketball team for 65 years. And whereas Christopher was a lifelong member of the American Legion, the Veterans Foreign Wars, was a founding member of the Italian American Veterans Post number 21, where he served as post commander until his passing in 2019. And whereas it is fitting that the heroic service and sacrifice Christopher R. Sgambati for his nation and community be recognized and remembered, and his memory be honored, now therefore be it proclaimed that the 16th day of August 2022 is hereby dedicated to the memory of Christopher R. Sgambati and grateful recognition by the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors on behalf of all the citizens of the county for the service and sacrifice made by him for his country. And witness whereof I have hereto set my hand and affixed the seal of the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors this 16th day of August 2022. And I'd like to ask the family to come up to receive the proclamation. And we're also presenting on behalf of the Board of Supervisors a challenge coin with the seal of the Saratoga County on it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now I'd like to introduce our Saratoga County District Attorney, Saratoga County, or excuse me, our Saratoga County Clerk, Craig Hayner.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a really good day. A really good day as we get to honor someone who meant so much to us. And although I didn't know Chris for many years, the years that he led us in God Bless America and Amazing Grace here at the ceremony told me a lot about who he was, which was only confirmed by what Chaplain O'Keefe had to say, and also Tom, that there's no doubt that his legacy is one of a person who loved God, loved his country, loved his family, and loved his community. I think that pretty much sums it up. And it's exactly why we honor people like Chris, who really stand out to us, you know, in what American exceptionalism really is, which is a service above ourselves. And boy, if we could really get those attributes back into society today, just imagine what things could be again. It's truly an honor to be here. I have so many special memories of those times, but I was always very impressed the very first time I came to one of those ceremonies to hear Chris lead us in Amazing Grace, and the fact that it was even part of the ceremony, showing the faith, and that so it meant so much to so many people for so many years. And then closing outside with God Bless America, people holding hands and singing that, it just always made a great impression on me. And I'm just grateful to have had even a little bit of time with Chris. I wrote something very special for him that I'll present to the family, but I'm just so thankful, Christina, David, and Patrick. I really appreciate it, you letting us honor him today. And God bless his memory, and God bless your family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to introduce our Saratoga County District Attorney, Karen Hagan.
For those of you who've not been here before, that podium and I don't match up. So I come over here each month to get a chance to talk to the family. And it's with joy, it's with sadness, it's with respect, it's with love, and it's with friendship that I get to speak a little bit about Chris Sgambati today. I've been so very fortunate to have been included in these ceremonies since becoming the district attorney in 2015. Every month I got to come and sit next to Chris Sgambati. So first of all, I could sing a lot better because he was in tune and I wasn't. But more importantly, we got a chance to chat just a little bit each and every day. And as all of you who knew him over the course of your lives, he would greet you with a smile. He would be happy to see you. He was interested in what was going on. And he made me feel special. And he did that not just for me, but for everybody here in the county, everybody in the world he touched, whether it was in work, whether it was in his work as a supervisor. I know his work with veterans, he touched them each and every day. And what an amazing example of someone who was such a part of the fabric of our community, because that's what he was. And we are all better just as people and as a community and as a society for people like Chris Sgambati. And so I'm here today to say to the three of you, thank you for sharing him with us, because I got this extra bonus of getting to know who he was, and he's made a difference in my life. And so I've written you a very short little note that I'll give to you, but no, he's in my heart and in my thoughts on a regular basis. So thank you. There's one for each of you there.
Thanks very much. As mentioned, we're honored to have with us our elected officials from New York State and from the United States Congress. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Assemblywoman from the 113th Assembly District, Carrie Warner.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for all the great work that you do on behalf of our veterans. Thank you to the veterans who are here with us today. I know that you are here at every one of these ceremonies to honor your fellow veteran, just as we all are. But thank you so much for your service to our country. And to the Sgambati family, it is wonderful to be with you. You know, many of you have probably heard me say before that in my experience in Mechanicville, no one in need is ever alone. And I think that what I know of your father, your grandfather, your family member is that he really embodied that principle. That just as the story that Paul O'Keefe told about making sure that his family didn't need to pay the insurance premium when they were in need, or mentoring Tom as a young insurance or a young elected official. Your dad was somebody who rolled up his sleeves, got involved, led from the heart, and you didn't need to know him very long to know that that was true. It's hard to be in this room at this ceremony and not look down the way and see Chris sitting there and know that he's going to be singing Amazing Grace with us. One time I had an opportunity when we were outside, I got to stand next to him and hold his hand as we sang God Bless America. And he had the warmest, strongest hand. And it was just a pleasure to be next to him while he sang and led us all in song. I was chatting with Megan Quillinan at the community center, and I told her I was coming to this ceremony. She said there was no better advocate for the city of Mechanicville than Chris Sgambati, and that he loved his family even more, and that he cooked Sunday supper for all of you right to the end. I wish I'd gotten a chance to be invited. But our community is better off for Chris's life. He is missed. He will be missed. But I like to think that when someone we love goes on before us, they go up into those heavenly bleachers where they can sit up there and watch how things roll out for us. And they can yell at the umpire when he makes a bad call and cheer us on when we do great things. And I know he's up there watching us today and cheering us all on. So thank you so much, as the district attorney said, for sharing him with us for so many years. We are honored to have known him and to have worked with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Warner. Now I'd like to introduce our New York State Senator from the 43rd Senate District, Daphne Jordan.
Good afternoon. It's really an honor to be here with all of you and to be with the Sgambati family. It's a tribute to Chris and to the family that this room is packed. It doesn't always get filled like this, so that's wonderful. When I look at all that Chris Sgambati has done, one word came to mind because it encompasses so much. And I would say that Chris Sgambati is synonymous to the word service. He served his nation, he served his fellow veterans, and he served his community in Mechanicville. And we've heard all that he does. So in his nation, you know, he was in the Navy right after high school. I know that so many go after high school, but I still have a hard time imagining it, thinking that my youngest is 21 and he has not served. And to picture that is sort of tough for me. I appreciate it. He had numerous medals for his service in the Navy, and we thank him for that service. So many of the veterans that we honor here serve their fellow veterans because they can understand them. They know what they've been through. They're brethren together. And it's remarkable to think that Chris was a life member of the American Legion. the veterans of foreign wars. He was a founding member and post commander of the Italian-American War Veterans, Peter Purcell, post number 21. He participated right here monthly for all the honor of vet ceremonies. He was an advocate for the Veterans Memorial in Mechanicville, that's in Talmadge Park. He was a member of Mechanicville's Veterans Council. He loved his veterans because he understood them, and he was a brother to all of you. He served his community. He was on the Board of Commissioners of the Mechanicville Housing Authority for 30 years and 10 years as chair. That's a lot of responsibility and a lot of work. He was a volunteer timekeeper. This was probably the most fun job that he had for Mechanicville High School basketball, boys basketball team for 65 years. That's probably the most fun thing he did in all of his volunteer service. He sang in the Assumption Choir, 30 years as a Saratoga County supervisor up until the age of 80. How remarkable is that? And that's dedication. That's not an easy job. So he was a man who cared. He cared about the people around him. He worked for the people around them. And he served all of us, everybody in the nation, by his service in the Navy. Senator Marchone, my predecessor, recognized him and honored him in admitting him to the 2015 to the Senate Hall of Fame. So that was something I couldn't do. But today I brought with me a New York State proclamation, and I also brought with me a New York State Commendation Award, and it comes also with a challenge coin. I want to tell you that the Commendation Award is not easy to get or to give out, and I want to tell you what the individuals that get it and how they are identified. The Commendation Award identifies exceptional individuals who have shown dedication and made lasting contributions to their community. These are available to individuals who exemplify the spirit of volunteerism at its best and devote their personal time, energy, creativity, and expertise to helping others. They display exceptional generosity by performing outstanding civic and charitable works. They serve as leaders in the community who enrich the social, health, and educational well-being of their fellow citizens, demonstrate leadership by chairing committees, working on neighborhood causes and mentoring others, show effort and dedication to improve the quality of life in every aspect of their communities. And that is Chris Sgambati to a T. So I'd like to present this to the family. And thank you for sharing him with the community and with everybody for so many years.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Now I'd like to introduce representing the 20th Congressional District, Congressman Paul Tonko.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank you for your service to the veterans, to my colleagues in government, and certainly to our distinguished veterans and the service that you continue to provide well after service to this nation. Thank you, Chaplain O'Keefe, for your stirring comments, and Tom, for your emotion that both of you shared, and mostly to the family and friends of our distinguished veteran, Christopher Ralph Sgambati. What a distinguished individual. And to all of you, to you, Tina, and Dave, and Patrick, Brut. Her fault. But great to be with the family. I've been to many of these ceremonies in many counties in the 20th Congressional District. But this turnout, the solemnity with which people listened to the opening prayer, the tears that were dripping speak volumes about what a special individual we're honoring today. And I was touched by the fact that he grew up over what was described as mom and pop, La Familia. Isn't that what it's about? Those nurtured roots of his came from family and faith, I've got to believe. And mom and pop, you know, we honor today the wonderful individual, Stefano and Emilia's baby boy. And it started with those roots to serve family, serve friends, serve community. It just didn't happen. And so I believe he embraced those wonderful values and drew him to service to this country in the Navy for nearly 3 years in that Pacific Theater. Not an easy assignment, brought to many battles on the islands, and he performed with courage and strength, intelligence, and undeniably patriotism. So we honor those characteristics that he embodied so valiantly well. We also are touched by the fact that, you know, he and his beloved Lucy produced and carried those values forward with the family, adding to that family tree. And, you know, I think that I've heard it said once and sometimes repeated that before you deliver a homily beautifully, let me see one performed. And it's like Chris performed the homily his entire life. Love one another, the directive we get from Scripture. Pour yourself empty with the gifts that I poured into your vessel. He poured himself empty. And that's why he was so recognized and respected. I was telling some that when I was running for office to serve Mechanicville, that you have got to go see the beloved supervisor, Chris Sgambati. And it's like paying tribute. And it was my pleasure. But his golden voice, his love for veterans, his spirit of community, investing his passions, his skills, his abilities in so many dimensions, making the fabric of community truly a stronger fabric and leaving that indelible mark that forever is recognized well past his days on this earth. And so I offer my condolences with also the thank you for a life well lived and for being the measuring stick and the inspiration for all of us in public service. It was said by our senator that it was service that gets reduced to that one word. And I would say that service was driven by love. Love one another. And Supervisor Sgambati, Christopher Sgambati, was a whole lot of amore. A whole lot of amore. So in recognition of the tribute here, in his honor, in his memory, I ask that a flag be flown over the nation's capital in respect for all that he's done for country, for the world, for that matter, and for the state and his beloved community of Mechanicville. It's flown over the Capitol out of utmost respect and regard for our hero. So Christopher Ralph Sgambati, may you rest in peace with your beloved Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Couple of folks before we move on to the last parts of our program. Just want to acknowledge a couple more folks here. From the city of Mechanicville, the Public Safety Commissioner, Fred Hosley, and of course, the Mayor Mike Butler are here. Thank you for supporting our ceremony and being here. I mentioned earlier that Supervisor Richardson chairs our Veterans Committee. So here at the Board of Supervisors in Saratoga County, All the programs, all of the resources available to veterans, our ceremonies, our efforts are coordinated by a dedicated committee of the Board of Supervisors. Not every county does that, but we are fortunate to have that kind of attention and support from the board, and we thank them all for that, and for our chairman for overseeing that. There are other people that are involved in the work that we do. For this ceremony in particular, I want to acknowledge my staff first. The person who does the most, Megan Kuplush, is back there, and she does a great job. Our veteran service officer back there, Paul Masso, meets with all of our clients on a day-to-day and works very hard. I want to thank Therese Conley and Bridget Ryder and the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Christine Rush, you see her taking pictures, our public relations, and then all of our proclamations. There's a gentleman back there, Michael Hartnett. I've never called him out, but I do want everybody to know Michael works very hard on this program with us every month and make sure that all the details are correct and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So I want to thank Michael for his efforts on that as well. At this time, we do have someone special that would like to speak, and that's Tina, Chris's daughter, and I'd like to invite her to the podium.
Better not mess with that. Frank, thank you for spearheading this entire thing every month. You know, we came not only with my dad, but we came afterwards and will continue to come because it's such an important commemoration for our veterans. Thank you, all of you, for speaking so beautifully and for all your kind words about our dad. I never in a million years thought that someday we would be honoring him because I just thought we were never going to lose him. There's not much I can add, but there are just a couple of things and it won't take me long. We wish we had asked him so many more questions before he left us, especially about the job of a fire controlman on board a Navy ship, because we just found out how complex a job it was and what it entailed. Dad loved to tell stories. He loved telling them, and we loved hearing them. One of them that was special to him was he always told us about he was never a smoker. Well, maybe once, like when he was 6, he said he got caught and he never did again. But on board ship, when they got their paychecks, he would buy cigarettes and he would give them to his shipmates. And so he was a pretty popular sailor. He used to give away his cigarettes and he used to use them as poker chips sometimes. We found those cigarettes, Japanese cigarettes. We found them in his locker. It was a small suitcase that must have been in his locker on board ship. And I opened it up and I saw the cigarettes, and right away, I knew what the rest of the contents were going to be. He also told a story to me one night while I was spending the evening with him, how he got a little R&R. He left the ship for a little while, and coming back, he met a rickshaw driver who had a cart full of watermelons. And he said to the rickshaw driver, he said, how much for those watermelons? And he said, $1. And he said, $1 a piece? He said, no, $1, all of them $1. Follow me, he said. And he led the driver back to the ship where they gave out the watermelons to all of his shipmates. Then he had one other special shipmate that he was seasick all the time. So to get over his nausea, he would whistle. And he loved to demonstrate. Kristen, remember? Kristen tells me his name was Nelson. She thinks she remembers. And he used to walk up and down. He used to kind of march and tell how Nelson used to whistle. And my dad wasn't a great whistler, but he got it out. And that was another one of his favorite stories. And then he also told my grandsons when they came back from their visit to the Panama Canal, how his ship was among all those ships that were lined up there before they could leave and to, I think they went to San Francisco, right from so come back to the United States of America. One thing he didn't tell us, and we only found out when discovering those locker contents, was that he clung to his faith in God. And he said his morning and his night prayers every day. And we found letters from his sisters reminding him to do so. Dad also had some sad memories, losing 5 of his best buddies, those who were not as lucky as he was and weren't able to return home. And he never failed to keep their memory alive by mentioning their names whenever he spoke publicly. He loved his family. He loved his country. He loved his community. He loved serving on this board of supervisors. He proudly sat in one of those very seats and never missed one meeting in 30 years. And even when they put those roundabouts in and we used to cringe and we didn't want him to come up here, nope, he was fine. He just was so proud of representing his city of Mechanicville, and nothing was going to stop him. And one of his favorite places to be was right here at this deceased veterans ceremony. My brothers and I used to joke about no matter how under the weather Dad might feel the rest of the month, he always miraculously got better for this ceremony. He moved faster, he stood taller, he heard better, and he sang louder every time he came here. Dad has been honored many times in his lifetime, and I'm sure he's smiling even wider than usual at being honored here today at one of his favorite places with some of his favorite people. Thank you all for being here to smile with him.
Thank you, Tina. Great words. So I thanked a bunch of people earlier, and I wanted to highlight a couple of folks. We're going to move outside in a moment, in a couple of moments, to do the flag raising ceremony. Our color guard outside is from the American Legion, Post 234 here in Ballston Spa. And we've got gentlemen here from the County American Legion as well. And I want to thank the folks from Post 91 in Mechanicville and from Schuylerville, Maggie, for coming down to the ceremony as well. At this time, I'll ask Chaplain O'Keefe to lead in the flag exchange. And if you could remain standing, we've got one final piece of business to do here inside, and it's something that we haven't quite filled since Chris left us. But I think we got some good backup here. We've got his son, Pat, who's going to fill his shoes and lead us in amazing grace. And for those who would like to join, the words are on the back of the program.
Excuse me, I need my cheaters. And I hope I can get through this. I think I went through a whole box of Kleenex already. My dad loved doing this, and he'd be especially honored if you all joined in and sang along. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Thank you.
And for the record, the version and the words in the back of the program were put on there with clearance by Chris himself. We followed his direction on that. And this concludes the inside portion of the ceremony. We are going to move outside for a flag raising and rifle salute and our closing prayer by our honorary chaplain. I just want to thank you all for participating. And one last final note, if I could make about Chris, is as the veterans director, when I first came on board, there were a couple of guys that came to this ceremony month in, month out. One of them was Gene Corsell, who's no longer with us. The other one, Chris Sgambati, and another one, Billy McBride. And when somebody like Chris gave somebody like me a wink and said, "Good job," that really made my confidence build. And I want to thank your family for that and for him. So we appreciate it. If we could join us out front. We're going to do the picture first inside. We're going to do ask the family and the elected officials just to stick around for 1 second. We're going to take a quick couple of photos and then we'll all move outside. Folks who aren't in the photo, if you want to go ahead and move out to the front, that would be great. Thank you. Maggie corrected me, which is usually daily occurrence.
Our Heavenly Father, as we depart from this special ceremony, we pause to worship and memory Christopher Sgambati, who entered with final thought. He has been received by you. Let us pray safely and carefully to our home. May God's blessings be with us all. Amen. Thank you all. Right. Hey. Fire. 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 Freeze. Fire.
Now, if you could lead us in God Bless America.